Hi guys, welcome back to Transformation Studio. Today's video is going to be a personal one. It's going to be my story, um, and I'm going to try to keep it as concise as possible. But I really have felt the need, the urge to share my story. I find a lot of times that I meet women, and once I really start talking to them, I realize how much I have in common with them through pain, through trauma. And when we start talking about it, it's almost as if no one has ever given them the space to talk about it. So this is that space. And I feel like I need to be transparent to talk about my own journey because we're in this together. I'm not coming to you as a professional, as someone who has all the answers, who's figured it all out. I am literally in this journey day by day, taking chances, um, taking risks, putting myself out there. So this is my story. I want to first start by saying I am a very private person. Everybody knows that. All of my friends know that. And so for me to open up like this on an extremely public platform is huge. I literally struggled the whole day before doing this video. I just struggled. I was just like, okay, is there another way I can do it? Maybe. No. I'm just gonna tell my story. And so um I'm hoping that there will be some of you out there who can identify with it. So the purpose of this channel is to find peace and healing and empowerment um, from pain, mental illness, and trauma. And trauma has been a big part of my life. The first time I ever experienced trauma, I was 11 years old and I was riding my bike in the neighborhood. And as I was riding my bike, I saw a car maybe a few feet in front of me parked on the side. And there was this guy hanging out of the driver's side window with his arm out. And he was like looking through the, what do you call that? Not rear view mirror, but that side mirror. I forget what you call it. And it just felt strange. It just looked weird. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to turn down this street and I won't keep going past this weird guy in my 11-year-old brain. So as soon as I did that, I saw him start up the car, turn his car around, and then he started to follow me. So in my head, I'm young, I'm naive, but my spidey senses are tingling. So I make a left, he makes a left. I make a right, he makes a right. I make a left, he makes a left. So at this point, I know for sure I'm being followed. I'm 11 in my neighborhood. There's really nobody outside. I'm just riding my bike alone by myself. So as I start to pedal faster because my adrenaline is pumping, I have no idea what's going on. All I can think about is like, this man is going to do something to me in my 11-year-old mind. As I start to go faster, he starts to go faster until he's pretty much, very close to the back of my bike. So at this point, the only thing I thought to do was throw my bike down in somebody's yard, hop up off of it, and go banging on somebody's door. I don't even know whose door it was. As soon as I did that, he literally just sped off. Now, no one came to the door, but I don't even remember how I got back home. I think I left my bike and I maybe ran to the corner of a house or something like that, and I waited for maybe like 30 minutes or something like that and walked back home. Honestly, I can't remember because it was so traumatic that I think my brain just kind of shut off some of these details. So I remember telling my mom about it because, I was raised by my mom in my mom's house. And I don't remember that conversation. And I'm being honest with you guys. I don't remember how it went. I'm sure she was empathetic. My mother's a very loving and supportive person. But we didn't go to the police station. We didn't do any of that. So, cut to, I think I'm like 21, 22. Um, I am going to the grocery store. I go in the grocery store and I grab something, and I go and I check out, and I'm walking to the parking lot. So as I walk to my car, this older white man walks up to me and he asks me for the time. And so I open foolishly, okay? I open my purse to get my cell phone to give him the time. And as I'm doing that, I hear somebody yelling, "Hey, hey, miss." And I start looking around and I see this woman coming out of the store, running out of the store, and I realize she's talking to me. So at this point in time, I start reaching in my bag to get my receipt because I'm like, I didn't steal nothing, okay? I got my receipts. So as she's running out, I start to walk to meet her, and I'm pulling out my receipt, and she comes really closely to me, an older black woman, and she's like, "I just want to tell you that man you were talking to was following you through every aisle. He followed you the whole time that you was here." As she said that, I turned around and looked. This man was literally on the opposite side of the parking lot now. He had gotten in his car and he literally was driving off. The man who just asked me for the time. So I looked at her and I just, I said, "Thank you. I appreciate that." She was like, "Be safe." And we kind of departed. And so that trauma that I felt at 11 was again reinforced, reiterated, because I was followed again. This man obviously had some ill intent. So I don't really think I told anyone about that. All right. So fast forward, listen, it's a lot. Fast forward to when I am 27, 28, I go back to New York. So I studied acting. I lived in New York on and on for 10 years from the age of 19 to 29. So at this point in time, I had went back to New York to pursue acting again. And so I was used to riding a train. I've always lived in Harlem, so I knew how to navigate the train. But for this reason, I was staying in Brooklyn, and the theater that I was working at was in Harlem. So I think I got on, might have been the 2 or 3 train at night, leaving from a performance. Um, Probably was like 11 something. I'm thinking I'm cool. I'm a New Yorker. I put my headphones on and I'm just chilling, right? And I remember it was from 110th Street to 96th Street. And anybody who knows that on the 2 or 3 line, that's kind of long. I mean, it's kind of long. So as soon as I sit down, put my headphones in, I see somebody walk in the peripheral, in my peripheral, and this person throws their body down and then they throw it back up. They bend their body down and throw it back up. So in my mind, I'm like, "Oh yeah, they wilding. I already know they probably on some drugs or something like that." So I was determined to turn my volume up and just keep looking straight. Because, in New York, you see that all the time. It's whatever. Well, guys, this time was a little different, okay? So this guy, once the doors close, doom, doom, I'll never forget that sound. He walks in front of me because I'm right on that corner seat by the door. He stands in front of me, and as I look up at his face, he literally has tattoos all over his face. His eyes, not there, gone. He pulls down his pants and starts masturbating in front of me. At this point, because I have become accustomed to trauma and the fight or flight, I get up, still trying to be cool and somewhat composed, not trying to be hysterical so as to, set him off anymore. Um, I get up and I walk down that train, that car, and I go sit by some black guy. Keep in mind, it's mostly black men on the train. It's mostly men on the train and they're black men. So I'm like, yo, this is crazy. This is wild. But let me go sit by this black man because then I'll feel better. So at this point, this guy starts swinging at people on the train. Swinging. I'm surprised he didn't hit anybody because he was swinging violently on the train. See, in New York, if you're not a New Yorker, then you don't know. Wild things happen on the train all the time. All the time. So people usually plug their headphones in, read a book, act like they don't see it. You'll see the wildest stuff and people will still act like they're in their own world. But at this point, this was so wild that everybody's eyes were locked on him and everybody literally had a look of fear. It was crazy. So he's mumbling to himself and he's saying something. And as he comes back around, he comes back to me. Keep in mind, I'm the only black woman on the train. And then there's a white woman sitting across from me. He comes back to me, pulls his pants down again, and starts masturbating in front of me. All the while, I hear him saying something about some girl who did something sexual to him, and his phrases were all disjointed. Nothing was making sense. It's obvious that he was just on a whole nother level. And so at this point, I immediately looked to the man that I went to sit next to, older black gentleman. He looked away so fast, it blew my mind. As soon as I looked at him, he looked away the other way. So at this point, the guy, the perpetrator, bends down in front of me and he taps my knee and he's basically making me look at all the tattoos on his body and he's saying something. And at this point in my mind, I knew I was going to die. See, since I was 11 years old and this traumatic thing happened to me, death became real. And violent death became real. Super real. Tangible. And I carried subconsciously inside of me that I was always going to die a violent death. Deep in my subconscious. So now it's happening. On a train. In front of people. And all I could see running through my mind were all the stories that I heard of how these girls were missing and brutally raped and murdered and all this. And this was the type of man that you would envision would do something like this. So this is what's happening in my mind. This is it. This is the moment that I die. And the only thing I can think of, and it's crazy because at that point in time, I didn't know how I felt about Christianity. I didn't know if I really believed it. I started finding out all these different things. And so I didn't know if I believed at this point in time, but the only thing I could think of, because I was raised in the church and raised by a Christian mother, was the name Jesus. I couldn't even get it out. I was frozen in fear. I saw people and they were looking at me. Everyone, nobody on that train took a breath. It was like the air was sucked out of that car. The only thing I can think of was the name Jesus. And as soon as I thought that name, at the moment I knew I was going to die, the train doors opened. Doom, doom. And as soon as he heard that sound, his head snapped and he literally ran out. Just like that, gone. I'm still stuck here. And my eyes are looking around and I look at the only other woman on the train, which is a white woman sitting across from me. And she mouthed to me, "You need to get out." So I don't even remember really walking out. I don't remember anything because I was paralyzed with fear. But as I was walking out, I do remember a younger black man walking beside me. And he said under his breath, I was just making sure he didn't touch you. So at this point in time, I get out of the train station. I think I'm like, I don't even know where I was. Oh, I was on 96th Street. So it was 110th to 96th because I was going to Brooklyn. I didn't know where I was. I walked out, in total fear. I caught a cab. And from that day on, my life has never been the same. Fear, torment, paralyzing torment was my breakfast, it was my lunch, it was my dinner, it was in my sleep. I was living my dream in the city of my dreams with the man of my dreams at the time, but I was paralyzed, tormented with fear. So, fast forward to 2018, 2017, when I came back um, from New York. I came back home. I am, as I'm saying it, I'm like, this is wild. Like, this is wild. 2017, I'm coming back home because I moved back home. Um, and so as I'm driving in the same neighborhood, ironically on the same street that I got followed on when I was 11, which this is something I'm going to talk about in a later video. All these black women and these children going missing, this is real. This is not a game. It's not a test. It's not something that's just haphazardly happening. No. All right. So I'm in my late 20s, back home on the same street driving. And by now, I'm hyper vigilant. Hypervigilance is my middle name. I'm always checking my surroundings. Every little thing makes me jump. Like I'm just totally, totally tormented in my mind. So I look in my rearview mirror and I see someone driving behind me, and they were making turns that I was making. Now at this point in time, they could have just really been going to their house. I didn't care. I'm still looking out because look at what's happened to me. So I'm driving, and as I'm looking in my rearview mirror, this person puts their cell phone on their steering wheel. And they continue to make the same turns I'm making. So at about the fourth or fifth turn, when I start getting closer to my house and I'm on my street, I'm like, all right, so this is real. This is happening again. And I pull into a random driveway, and I'm thinking they're going to pass, and they pull up right on the sidewalk of that random driveway. And at this point, I've talked to so many people about this. I've tried to pour my heart out and say, hey, this is what I'm going through. I'm tormented. I got PTSD. But every time I would talk to people, it would always be like, girl, I would have did this. Or, oh, wow, that's crazy. Dang, for real? Dang, man, you got to be careful. So anyway, or I would talk to a man and they would be like, yeah, you got to be careful out here. Or, you got to, just fight back casually, right? These are the responses that I would always get. So at this point in time, I'm really feeling like I'm just alone in this. So in my head, I'm like, all right, I got to do something different. Because obviously I'm tripping. Everybody else is talking to me like all these things I've been through is nothing. So I'm tripping. Let me approach this head on. Like old boy told me. So I get out the car. What I'm going to do when I'm out the car, oh no. But at this point in time, I'm tired and I'm trying something different. And as I get out the car, this man gets out the car and he jokingly says in a weird, creepy way, you following me? As he's walking closer to me. So at this point, I'm like, all right, so like all of this is running through my mind. All right, so he's following me for real. And he's not only following me, but he's aggressive about making contact with me. So the only thing I could think of was before he gets close enough to me, I'm going to hop back in my car. So I hop back in my car. I think I said something like, no, you following me. But I saw he kept walking closer with this weird smile on his face. So I got back in my car because I'm like, bruh, like what am I going to do? So I hop back in my car, I hit reverse, and I go to the end of the street, and I make a couple laps around. He's not following me, but I see him at the end of that same street. So finally, I'm like, we're going to wait it out. I'm all the way on one side of the street. He all the way on another side of the street. Finally, a few minutes later, he decides to go on. Cut to a few months after, 2018 sometime. I'm working as a bartender at a hotel. And this guy comes in at the beginning of my shift. I worked in the evening. Weird. I mean, Energetically, he wasn't right. He seemed totally spaced out. He tried to come up to me and make weird conversation with me. He wasn't buying any drinks. He was just sitting by me because it was really slow. So I was sitting at a table and he came and sat by me, asked me, "How you doing?" "I'm good." But at this point in time, I've been through so much and I can read him and tell something ain't right. So he leaves. And then my other coworkers are like, another guy I was working with, older white guy, was like, wow, he's weird. So again, I'm hyper vigilant. So I'm just on the lookout. He comes back in at least 3 to 4 more times, not ordering a drink, not wanting anything. But he comes and sits a table away, but he's still staring at me. So at this point in time, he asked me what time I was getting off of work. And so I lied and told him a time earlier than what I would be getting off of because I already knew he probably had some ill intent, like obviously, duh, right? So I told him a lie. Turns out they cut me early. So I left at the time, actually, that I told him I was going to leave, even though it was a lie. Right. So at that point, the older guy, which is such a cool guy, he was like, "Man, get somebody to walk you to your car because that guy is weird." And in my head, I'm like, "No, I'm okay." But as I thought about it, I was like, "Yeah, go ahead and call the manager." So as we walk out, we're walking to the employee exit, which is in the back of the parking lot. It is dimly lit where the trash cans are. I mean, it's just a scene from a scary movie. It's just really whack. Like I've always hated leaving that exit. So, but one of the managers comes and he's like, "Oh, you think the guy's gonna follow you? Oh, okay." I'm like, "Yeah, he's probably not out there, but just in case." As soon as we hit the door, guess who was there with a drink in his hand in the back of a parking lot, of a dark parking lot, the only person by the trash can waiting. Surprise, this guy at night. The manager looked at me and he was like, "Whoa." He walked me to my car. He made sure I left out. I must have did 70 on the highway. So that's been my experience. Now, I've had other traumatic experiences as far as dating goes with abuse. I actually got kidnapped. I'll save that for another story by a boyfriend, nevertheless kidnapped. I've had other horrific things happen on a date. So, all of this, I can't explain the amount of torment, worthlessness, hate, sickness, sadness, every vile thing you can think of is just all in me all the time. I didn't feel safe driving. I didn't feel safe walking. I didn't feel safe at work. I didn't feel safe sleeping. I wasn't safe in my dreams. Like it's just been torment. So this is why I started this channel. I gave you a brief overview of why I have struggled with post-traumatic stress disorder and anxiety disorders. And this is why I have this platform, because I know I'm not the only one. I'm obviously not the only one. Black women have been in this country for over maybe 4 to 5 centuries now, experiencing trauma after trauma after trauma, built on trauma. Your mama had trauma, your grandma had trauma, we have trauma. This is a big deal. So, as a disclaimer, I am a very spiritual person, very, and I'm very thankful for that. I'm not going to be apologetic about it, and I might come off a little raw sometimes. I'm not here to do any debates about spirituality. I'm not here to, give into gaslighting like, whatever. I don't know, whatever kind of excuses. Like I watch channels and I see how people do, and I don't care. I'll block you. I won't comment. I'm not here for it. I'm not here for it. I'm putting my life on the line, and I'm not gonna play. I'm serious about Black women. I'm serious about my spirituality, and I'm serious about healing. So if you're directly opposed to any of that, this might not be the channel for you, and that's okay. It's thousands of other channels out here. But if you're serious about healing, if you can recognize you've had trauma in your life, it could be totally different from what I went through with the stalkings. It could have been sexual abuse. It could have been physical abuse. It could have been verbal. It can be even coming from a source that you're unaware of. This is the place for you. We're going to expose it and we're going to get through it together. So that's my story in a nutshell. Of course, this is only the second video, so I have many more stories to tell you, but I want to, in the next video, start getting into techniques for healing, and let's get the ball rolling. We can do this. Like I said in my last video, if Black women are sick, the whole world is sick. I once heard a quote, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but it was something along the lines of, if you want to see how well a country is doing, look at the way they treat their women, or something like that. I'm not a feminist. I'm actually very traditional in my, I'm traditional and radical at the same time. I don't even know how that works, but I am. I'm not a feminist. Men are super important. In fact, I would love for men to listen to these videos and to learn how they can protect their women, and how we can come together and fight this thing, and work through healing together. So I'm not here to diss men at all. That's the last thing I want to do, but I'm definitely going to be real. That's just what it is. So I love you guys. I appreciate you guys for making it through this far. Like I said, this was hard to do, but I'm so happy I've done it. Please tell me about some of your experiences in the comment section. Give it a like, subscribe, all that stuff. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.